of all, for those who have no idea what Midnight Madness is, how would you describe it to them?
It's the program where initially, I think it was where the festival was like, these films are just too weird for mainstream consumption. Yeah. These are the strange movies. These are the outliers. Sometimes those are genre films, because often genre films like horror films go to shocking extremes that shock and rattle sensibilities.
For instance, last year's Midnight Madness lineup included...
We've got zombies, we've got dystopias, we've got iridescent meteorites, we've got religious zealots, we've got perverted prime ministers, we've got Jewish exorcists.
Since its inception in 1988, the Midnight Madness program at TIFF has been a fan favorite, drawing long lines of filmgoers ready to have a good time.
There's just a positive energy in the room that's so palpable. Even before the movie begins, people are having a great time. And I've even find that even if an audience member doesn't like the movie, didn't dig the movie, they still love the experience. I wear a hat for my intros, and I usually have a hat stand that I try to James Bond my hat onto. There's a different energy there, the energy people compare it to a rock show. Beach balls are often thrown before the intro.
It's up. You're a big Midnight Madness fan. How long have you been going?
So I looked it up. I guess about 17 years.
What do you love most about it?
Most of the midnight movies, whether they're a documentary or whether they're like kung fu or whatever, they're always like, they're kind of in your face more. And so, and that with the audience there, and the audience is expecting it. That's what I expect out of the midnight. Something to kind of like jolt the audience, and then the audience kind of responds, and then you just keep going.
So in most years, you would be looking to find 10 films. This year, dwindled it down to 3. What 3 films did you choose, and how did you go about choosing these 3 films?
What's important to me is trying to offer a distinct flavor every midnight experience. I don't want it to be 3 zombie films in a row, but I do have a zombie film this year. And when I do have a zombie film, I want it to be special. And so the opening midnight film this year is Get the Hell Out by Ai-Fan Wang. It's about Taiwanese parliament, and now it's like, wait, that sounds really boring. Type Taiwanese parliament into Google, and you will see the Taiwanese parliament. They fight. They literally, they're very passionate politicians. So the director Wang came up with, which I thought was a very inspired idea, is, well, what if they were literally eating each other? And so, so he basically recast Taiwanese parliament as the site of a zombie outbreak.
I love it. Then there's Shadow in the Cloud from New Zealand Chinese director Roseanne Lang, and starring Chloe Grace Moretz.
Chloe Grace Moretz plays a World War II pilot who's on a bomber, and there's something else on the plane, but her male crew does not believe her. What I'm really excited about is that this is going to be a drive-in screening. Yeah. So just as the character in the film is stuck in a metal vehicle, so will the audience.
Finally, there's Violation by Canadian filmmakers Madeline Sims-Fewer and Dusty Mancinelli.
It's a very upsetting film about revenge. And it's very special, though. I think it's going to be one of the most talked about films. I think my favorite thing about Midnight Madness is I am so privileged as a curator that, unlike, I feel like any of my peers, I actually get to watch the movie with the audience as well.
One particularly memorable moment came last year when the Ugandan film Crazy World, made on a shoestring budget by director Isaac Nabwana, was the closing film at Midnight Madness.
But thank you very much. You don't know what it means to me to be here.
Which is, I think, my proudest moment as a programmer, was to show this Ugandan action movie that was literally made for a few $100s in Uganda, in Toronto, to an audience of 1,000 people, for filmmakers that had never been in a movie theater before. They had never actually experienced their movie projected in a movie theater, and we had a live narrator who had flown from Uganda to live narrate the film. That was really important for me, because I've been interested in finding opportunities to kind of blow the doors off what is appropriate to show at a festival.
And that's a perfect example. This is made in Uganda with these kids who are, describe the plot.
Is literally about children being kidnapped in Uganda, but the kids are badass martial artists, and they fight back. It was something that really kind of changed people's understanding of like what cinema can be.
Amy Bowman was among those in the audience.
Last year's Crazy World, for example, is a great example of someone who made a film because they love film.
And it may just inspire one of her future creations. So you've been doing some embroidery art during the pandemic based on films you've seen at Midnight Madness.
Yes,
I love that. Show me some of your stuff.
Sure. So this is probably one of my favorites. This is inspired by Your Next, which is also one of my favorites that played the festival. This one is based on The Vast of Night, which played last year and was one of my absolute favorites. This is just a classic. This is the jack-o'-lantern from the opening credits of Halloween.
Yes.
Halloween 2018 was one of my favorites of the festival that year. Based on the guest, this is a variant on the artwork for the soundtrack.
How long have you been going to Midnight Madness?
I think the very first one I went to properly at midnight was in 2014 when I saw The Guest.
And then were you hooked then?
Absolutely, totally hooked. There's just nothing like it. It's incredible how electric that room can feel so late in the night.
This year, she plans to go to the midnight drive-in screening of Shadow in the Cloud.
One thing I kind of wanted to mention too is that I know a lot of people are sort of nervous or apprehensive about going out to theaters, and I just want to emphasize we are showing movies online digitally, and all the Midnight Madness films all are available digitally. And one thing that I'm hoping to do to kind of still make it feel special and not just you're putting on Netflix or something like that is if you follow Madness TIFF on Twitter, I will be actually live streaming an introduction and kind of fostering a watch party group.
With hopes of recreating at least some of that Midnight Madness magic.
And it's not even during the movie, it's really in that first 3 minutes during the pre-show, where everyone is applauding and clapping and screaming, and maybe they're going R like a pirate, but that moment, if I can at least create that moment in some way, if virtually, or make people feel that way at the drive-in, then I feel like, great, we've done it. Like Midnight Madness, happened in 2020.